Hello, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm Patrick O'Riordan, the Director of the Department of Building Inspection. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to ask questions, share your perspective, and to offer your advice on how we can improve. Hearing from you is a critical part of our improvement efforts, and we are fortunate to have you as partners. Now, we have several important updates to share today from several city departments, including DBI. Permit Center Manager Gus Bjorquez is going to share the Permit Center Code of Conduct and the new second floor layout for 49 South Van Ness. DBI Deputy Director for Permit Services, Neville Pereira, is going to detail the new form and process for requesting extensions and withdrawals of unissued permit applications. Neville will then present on the many improvements we've made in the in-house review process over the past several years and share data documenting the impressive results of these efforts. After that, we'll open up the floor to general questions and comments so we can hear from you directly about what's working and what we need to improve on and how we can better serve you and the city. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to DBI Communications Director Patrick Hannon, who is facilitating today's program.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you everybody for joining us. I'm actually going to turn it over to Kelly Omron briefly, who is coordinating the calls. Kelly, will you please explain how people can ask questions?
Kelly, you're muted.
Apologies. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. If you're joining us on your desktop or on the Microsoft Teams application and have a question, you can click the raise button at the top of the application to raise your hand and wait your turn to speak. And if you are calling into this meeting over the phone and have a question, you can dial *5 to raise your hand and wait your turn. When I call your name, you can click on the unmute button if you're on your desktop or a Teams application. And if you are calling over your phone, dial *6 to unmute. And please be sure to state your name and organization if you are representing one. And to withdraw your question at any time, feel free to press *5 or click on the raise hand button again.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. Now we're going to start off by turning it over to Gus Bjorquez from the Permit Center to speak about the Permit Center Code of Conduct and the new floor layout. Take it away, Gus.
Great, awesome, thank you. So my name is Gustavo Bjorquez. You can call me Gus. I'm the Permit Center Manager for the San Francisco Permit Center. Next slide. We're covering the topics today. We'll be talking about professional behavior at the Permit Center. We're going to be moving some counters, some departments on the Permit Center floor. We'll talk about that. And parking, where to park at the Permit Center. As always, our Permit Center vision is advancing to San Francisco as a safe, vibrant, and beautiful city through friendly, streamlined, and efficient Permit Center, serving all residents and business. And these are the guidelines that drive our actions at the Permit Center every day. Next slide. There you go to the next slide. Thank you. So talking about the professional behavior at the Permit Center. As you know, the Permit Center team manages and operates the Permit Center, including supporting permitting staff and customers at the counters. We have put together a code of conduct to better serve and guide these behaviors for not only customers, but as well as for staff. The Permit Center code of conduct provides ground rules on how customers and staff can best work together. You can find our customer code of conduct at our website at sf.gov/permitcenter. Next slide. There you'll see the two guidelines that drive the professional behavior or expectation at the professional behavior at the Permit Center. Number one, customers have the right to receive customer-centered and courteous service from Permit Center employees. Number two, the Permit Center employees have the right to feel safe in their work environment while providing service. Customers or employees that feel a misbehavior or misconduct took place should escalate or report the incident to a department supervisor or Permit Center employee at the help desk. We also have customer service feedback forms. You can pick up those feedback forms at the self-service computers. You can also submit those anonymously. There's a box where you can drop those feedback forms. You can provide feedback for any department providing service at the permit center. And again, if you'd like, you definitely fill out your customer contact information. If you have any questions, we'll call you back. And we do get these frequently. We also get not just complaints, but we also get commendations, which we share with the departments and celebrate the good work that's taking place in the permit center. Next slide. However, if you do not feel like you're receiving courteous or professional service at the counters, we ask that you escalate to a department supervisor at the counter, or again, reach out to us at the permit center help desk. We ask that you do not, however, use unprofessional language, cuss words, swear words, or yell at employees. We also ask that you do not harass or threaten employees verbally or physically. We ask that you do not use racial, gender, or cultural hate speech. We ask that you not make personal attacks to employees. We also ask that you do not offer gifts, any special favors or privileges or benefits while you're at the counter to permit center employees. We also ask that you don't ask for any preferential treatment or services. One that's not listed here, we also ask that you not sexually harass our permit center employees at the permit center, which unfortunately we've had to address these cases a few times. Next slide. So any of the behaviors that I listed will not be tolerated. Some of the possible actions is speaking with either myself or one of the supervisors on the floor, or a department manager, speaking with security, or we potentially can call emergency police and eventually file a police report. You may be asked to leave the permit center. It depends on the situation, but there are times when we ask customers to leave. Of course, you have the ability to come back at a later time. We may send you a warning letter or an emailing detailing the behavior and asking you to stop that behavior. We have at one time spoke with the city attorney on further action. Fortunately, though, that customer's behavior changed, and they've since been at the permit center and has been acting in a professional manner. If you have any questions or concerns, that's our email address, permitcenter@sfgov.org. And then that's my email address. So please feel free to either escalate any issues, provide any feedback on any services that you are providing or you provided at the permit center. Thank you. Next slide. So I mentioned we'll talk about some department counter moves. Just heard that the moves will take place on May 22nd. That's a Wednesday. So we'll move some of the departments while we close because it's a late start at 9 a.m. So by 9 a.m. we'll have those department moves. And again, the moves is to utilize the space, and to better utilize the space, and also to suit some of the needs of the departments, spatial needs for some of these departments that are moving. Next slide. Here's a map of the second floor. Maybe if you can scroll down a little bit, Kelly or Patrick, so you get a full view possible. But here's a map of the second floor. To the left, you have the South Van Ness Avenue entrance. To the right is the 11th Street entrance. This is the second floor. The big move is for the San Francisco planning. So city planning will be moving. City planning is currently at counters 29 and 33 on the South Van Ness entrance of the building. On the second floor, they are now moving to the 11th Street side of the building. So that's where currently PUC is located. PUC will be moving over to the far front corner of 49 at the 49 entrance, so counters 34 through 37. That's currently where Rec and Park they're moving. Public Work and Buff are also going to be there together. They're scooting over a little bit to 4048. The other big note is Technical Services Division for DBI. They're currently located around counters 40 and 49. They're moving closer to information counters. So now Technical Services Division will be on counters 29 to 33, where SF Planning is currently located. So again, the big move is SF Planning. SF Planning is moving from the South Van Ness side of the building over to the 11th Street side of the building. And this will take place again on May 22nd, which I believe is a Wednesday, at our late open. So everything will be moved by then. We'll have mapping, we'll have maps available for customers and signage on the updated floor plan. Next slide. Permit center parking. Of course, it's not easy to get to the permit center if you want to get to the next slide, or to park at the permit center. So I've listed some parking lots where you can park when you are coming towards to the permit center. Unfortunately, right now, there is parking at 49 South Van Ness in the building, but the city has reserved all those parking spaces for the city vehicles. This is a city building. You have a lot of inspectors going in and out in the field. And so the parking for 49 is reserved for city employees and their vehicles. As a reminder, we offer current department wait times. So we offer queuing wait times on our website. So please feel free to go to our website and check current queue times. Again, we understand that sometimes it can be difficult to get to the permit center. Then you find that there's a long wait or possibly a queue is closed, though we've done a great job in minimizing that. You always check on what the current wait times are on the departments on our website. Next page. The last thing is super excited. Some of you may notice on 11th Street, we put cones at about 3 parking spaces. Those parking spaces are reserved for mobile food facility inspections, so the mobile food trucks. DPH, Department of Public Health, and the fire department conduct inspections Monday through Thursday from 9 to 12. So if you see these cones, we ask that you not move them, and we ask that you do not park in these spaces. You want to make sure to look at the signs because potentially your vehicle could be towed if they're parked there Monday through Friday, 9 to 12. We are looking to expand those hours from I think 7 to 12 or 7 to 3 p.m. So that we can conduct multiple food truck inspections throughout the day. Next slide. That's all the announcements I have for the permit center. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out either to me directly or at permitcenter@sfgov.org. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, DBI.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, Gus. Very helpful information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Neville Perriera, our Deputy Director for Permit Services, who's going to speak about the updated unissued permit extension and withdrawal submission process. Neville? I think you're muted.
How to do that. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be here. Patty, you going to be doing the slides for me? Okay, great. Thank you. So today, to this particular piece, we're going to be talking about the updated request for extensions and withdrawals for unissued building permits. So this is the application stage. If you're requesting an extension to your application or withdrawal of your permit application, this is what applies to you. Anything that is issued goes through our inspection services division, and that's a separate process altogether. So then the first slide, please. Okay, so in order to streamline the process and ensure proper timing and processing of these applications, permit applications will no longer be submitted in person. The extension and withdrawal request will be submitted for in-house projects, will be submitted through the website or the email address dbi.cpbrequest@sfgov.org instead. This ensures that the applications are received in order and tracked accordingly throughout our approval process. And again, make sure that nothing gets left behind. The in-house review permit application, all of them will be taken in this way. For the over-the-counter process, you will still be allowed to walk in with those. As you can imagine, if you're in the process of a plan review, you should be able to walk over to our CPB station to file that extension or withdrawal request there. In the back of house, what happens with those applications is that we will scan them in so that they are logged into the same system, but processed, uniformly across the board. Next slide, please. So along with this comes an updated form. Nothing too much different than it was before. We just made a fillable PDF available for you to download from our website, and then be able to fill it out electronically on your computer and email it to that email address that I told you before, dbi.cpbrequest@sfgov.org. The main changes to this are in the processing part of it. The bottom part of the form, there's a space for the approving plan check manager to make some comments if necessary. And there's also a space now designated for our inspection services division in case there's an NOV or a case against the project, that they are make a notation to approve the application for processing. So essentially, same form, nicer format, cleaner format, being able to fill it out digitally if you need to. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, if you are in the over-the-counter process, you'll still be able to walk your extension request in. However, in the background, we will scan those in, and they will all be processed digitally. You will need to make an appointment with the OTC manager to have your application for extension or withdrawal reviewed by the OTC manager, though. So all those instructions are on the form and on our website. Next slide. After the approval is done, the applicant will receive an invoice via email, and the payment can be submitted online as well. So this has a couple of benefits. First of all, it helps, like I said, streamline the process, ensure that they're taken in order. And it's also looking more of a paperless, a more green approach to this the extension and withdrawal process. And the status of the application will be updated on the permit tracking system, which you again can track online. I believe that's it, right, Kelly? Yes. There are any questions about that process, or do we take them at the end?
Take the questions at the end.
Okay, got it.
Terrific. Thanks. Now you get to go again. You're up now to share about the in-house review process improvements and results that we've spoken to the group before about, and were introduced on January 1st, and we have some terrific data to show. So take it away.
Great, thank you again, Patrick. So I'm pleased to announce or to present this to you. We've been working pretty hard behind the scenes to make several improvements to our process, and so this is to outline. I apologize for those of you that are experienced with our process. I'm going to give you a brief rehash of what permit service is done or what we do at DBI before going into the statistics and some of the measures that we put in place. Next slide. So many of you know that the Department of Building Inspection is broken up into three divisions. The Administrative Services Division that deals with the budget, finance, HR, and MIS, Management Information Services. The other division is the Inspection Services Division that does all the field services, housing inspections, code enforcement, building, plumbing, and plumbing, mechanical, and electrical inspection. And then lastly, we have the Permit Services Division, which I oversee, which houses various sections. We deal primarily with plan review, both in-house and over the counter. Our specialty plan review section deals with mechanical, electrical, and energy plan review. Our permit coordination group is a customer service facing portion of the organization, the intake, routing, and issuance of permits. And then lastly, but by no means, the least, technical services. This is a small but mighty group that deals with code adoption research, administrative bulletins, and info sheets. They maintain and update those documents. They do most of the technical training for our staff, as well as administer the code advisory committee, subcommittees, all the soft story, board, unreinforced masonry buildings, the accessible business entrance programs, facade programs, and anything that may be upcoming as far as programs for DBI. That's what technical services done. In all, about 100 hardworking group of individuals here that really have a lot to do with performance improvements that you will see in a few slides. Next slide, please. So we don't do this alone, as you know. We have partner agencies that we review the building permits with. Those include the building inspection group that essentially clears the application for processing based on any complaints or notices of violations that exist on the property. The planning department, public works, fire department, our public health department, as well as the Public Utilities Commission. These are all responsible in one way or another on certain projects throughout the development review process for building permits. And then as far as customer service and process facilitation, we have various groups within DBI, and then our partners as well at the Permit Center that deal with customer service and process facilitation. Next slide. So we have three pathways of building permits here. The least process intensive are the instant online trade permits that you can deal with 24/7 online, and this requires a license B, B2, or specialty contractor that's registered with DBI and qualified to pull these permits. These permits are minor in nature. They're usually to do with electrical, plumbing, mechanical, re-roofing, kitchen and baths, and so on and so forth. These are obviously no plans permits that you can obtain, like I said, 24/7 and pay for them online and schedule your inspection soon thereafter. The next and most popular way of permitting at DBI is the over-the-counter process, where 92% of the volume of all our permits are processed over the counter. Many of you know Jimmy Chung, who manages that operation, and our plan reviewers that rotate down on a daily basis to facilitate that plan review. These are smaller scopes and simpler scopes of projects, and typically reviewed within an hour per project for DBI. And then lastly, we had the larger, more complex projects that come in and are submitted now through the online portal. And we'll talk a little bit about that. These are typically, like things that take over an hour and is, up to high-rise buildings, which take many, many weeks to review. And those take the form of either full permits or site permits with addenda. Next slide. Okay, these are some statistics of the volume of work that we do. In 2023, you can see that we took in about 1,100 projects and 480 or so addenda. Out of the, in that same time, we issued about the same number of site permits and full permits and addenda. So there's looking at those two statistics, you can see we pretty much process everything that came in. This equates to an average of about 150 or so permit applications submitted in-house every month. In total, we did about $1.1 billion in valuation, which works out to about $1 million in valuation for every. Again, these are submitted projects. These are in-house projects, not over-the-counter projects. And again, If you know that we submitted or we do about 92% of the volume over the counter, this represents about 8% of our work in volume. Next slide, please. We break up our plan review process into four discrete, actually 5 discrete subsections. The first one is the pre-submission phase, which a lot of people don't associate with plan review, but it's actually, there's a lot of work that gets done by our customers, our design professionals. That has to do with researching the project, looking on our websites for the information requirements that we need for application submissions, as well as filling out the application. We'll talk more about that later. Then we go into the intake phase where those applications come in. Today they come in through a web portal, and it goes through a series of completeness checks before we route it to the various agencies that I talked to, partner agencies in the plan review process. It goes through that plan review. It could be an iterative process whereby we write some comments and the applicant responds to them. And finally, after that, we will issue an invoice for the permit fees and issue the permit and approve the plans thereafter. Next slide, please. So our in-house plan review process improvements, essentially, well, for me, it started back in 2021 when I came on board to DBI as the deputy director here. Soon thereafter, I went to task to evaluate our processes, looking at existing practices, checking out our metrics and performance for those metrics. And where there weren't metrics in place or a way to gauge performance, we put those practices into place, and we created statistics to track. So that started about November, and then soon thereafter, in July of 2022, we initiated the pre-plan check process at DBI, where we wanted to improve the completeness and the quality of the plans. Here, the metrics were put in to estimate the amount of time it would take for first review for DBI. And thereby, by doing so, we were able to quantify each project coming in relative to each other. It wasn't a one project is the same as all projects. It was one project was 5 hours, the other project's 14 hours, and so on and so forth. By doing so, by allowing this qualitative analysis on the onset, we were able to assign projects a lot better. So in July, also, we established dynamic staffing assignments, whereby, if you remember, we took away everybody's backlog. We had individual plan checkers that had maybe a month or a month and a half's worth of individual backlog. We took away all of that and put it into a hopper, whereby everything was in the order it was received, and thereby freeing up the plan checker to only work on assignments for the week. This had many benefits for us. First of all, it allowed the plan checker to focus on plan review for most of the working hours of the day instead of answering calls about status of projects. It also allowed us to dynamically assign plans to the most available plan checker, as opposed to assigning it to someone that potentially had a day or maybe a week worth of vacation and having that project stall when it could be assigned to somebody else. And then also, lastly, based on the experience of the plan checker, certain projects were assigned to individuals, whereas before they were just kind of blindly assigned to our plan checkers. And so a project may have stalled because of the need for that plan checker to get up to speed on that type of project. Next slide. Also in July, we established prioritization of rechecks. Prior to this time, when a recheck came in, you were given a you issued comments on your plan review, and it went back to that plan checker, and it went to the back of their line sometimes, and made its way to the front of the line. That is no longer the case. We make sure that rechecks are go to the head of the line and checked within 10 days of them being resubmitted. This way, you're assured that your plan review gets the attention it deserves as soon as it comes in. Around October of 2022, we started to put these statistics into a dashboard form. We call it the Work in Progress Report, or the WIP report here at DBI, where we were able to see how long projects were languishing and move resources around to make sure we kept on target. We were also able to make sure that nothing got left behind. Now everything was systematically put into the queue, and we could see it coming up as needed. In June, the Permits Center took the DBI's WIP report and rolled it out outside of DBI to all the other development review agencies, so that they could avail of the same data and statistics that DBI was prior to this, so that now the entire city is working off essentially the same song sheet and moving things along as well as we can. Next slide. In July 2023, DBI established or changed the permit tracking system to accommodate a little bit more detail in our the way we reported out on the status of projects. In partnership with the Permit Center, we established the review results field on the website. You can see that for every time the application comes in, it's a new station in the process, whereas before everything was kind of mushed into a single station. Now, every time it came in, we were able to properly see when it arrived at the station, when it was assigned, when it was started, and when it was completed in that review cycle. And as soon as it left the city, we can now associate that time to the applicant and properly account for the amount of time it stays with the city versus the time it stays with the applicant. Around the same time as well, we also enhanced the permit tracking system to be able to show better communications, better comments along the way. So if we had communications with you, that's now entered into the comments field in the web version of PTS. This way, you, the applicant, or if you're the design professional or the owner, you can see who's holding your plan and for what reason and for how long, all the way along the way. Next slide, please. So those of you that are familiar with the permit tracking system, this is what you can see online. What's highlighted here is on the left side, the amount of reviews that it took. So, and this is something that we're really focused on reducing. We're looking at getting your permit quicker with less reviews. The next column along tells you the review result for that round, and then the comments in the far right-hand column, which are a little more robust than they used to be in the past. Next slide, please. And then in November of last year, we really started focusing on the overall process with all of our partner agencies to really look at enhancing the in-house review process. And as you know, in January, we initiated a 100% digital submittal for all in-house reviews, as well as implemented a completeness check review right at the beginning. This was not just limited to DBI. This was now expanded to all agencies, all pertinent agencies across the city, so that upfront, we were able to tell you whether there were missing components to your permit application, so that we could do as complete a review the first time around and give you, most, if not all of your comments the first time around. What we also did at this time is we front-loaded a lot of that initial information on our website, so that you, the public, you, the design professional, could do your research adequately and provide all of the documentation with links to forums and everything right there. There's a step-by-step guide, which we can see on the next slide if we go there. This is what our website currently looks like, and it outlines the steps there for you with hyperlinks to forms and process descriptions that you need outside of just the main building permit application process. If your project needed a street tree or attention to a street tree, your public works work in a public right-of-way, it would link you to that information. So a lot of work went into providing that information at the beginning of the year. Next slide. In addition, what we did was separate out a separate web page for you to find all of the forms that you need. A lot of our frequent customers go directly here as opposed to the step-by-step guide. They gather their forms. A lot of effort has been put into making these PDF fillable forms so that they come in crisp and clear when they're submitted through our online portal. Next slide, please. And then the online portal was also went live in January of 2024. This was there to consolidate multiple portals that existed, multiple entry points that DBI had for the building permit process. There was a walk-in process. There was an email process. There was the accessory building or accessory dwelling unit portal. There was the affordable housing portal, and all of these were consolidated to this one online portal. Very nicely done by our partners at Digital Services. Permit Center put this all together. We're still in the process of refining it as we learn more about our our practices and ways to improve the process, in the submittal process. Next slide. So this slide has to do with the way we process housing applications. Partly is partly brought about by legislative changes at the state level, and also in internal process improvement needs. We are allowed 15 business days for completeness review. I'm happy to announce we're hovering around 6 to 8 business days for most completeness reviews right now. And then depending on the number of housing units that you're creating, you either have a 60-day plan review timeline or a 30-day timeline that we enforce across all departments. You guys, it's not just DBI. All departments are now limited to these timelines. Next review. Next slide, please. As part of the completeness check, you will receive a letter confirming whether your application is complete or not. If it isn't complete, you'll get a detailed list of what needs to what is missing and what needs to be submitted on your subsequent round of submissions. So you get immediate feedback. You get immediate feedback when you submit your application, when you have either a complete or an incomplete application as well. Next slide. These are just some, and I won't go over all of them, but these are just some of the reasons that your application may be incomplete. you may, for whatever reason, either the owner or the design professional decided to both submit online, and we have duplicate submissions. If you have an incorrect address, either on your plans or your application, that you may get a letter back saying your application is incomplete or rejected. The other thing is this, that also in 2024, the planning department instituted the approval letter, which requires the planning approval for most projects be done before you apply for building permit application. That so if you have an extended entitlement process, you may get rejected because you haven't gone through the planning approval process. So there are various other reasons on here. If you're resubmitting, if you didn't have a plan review response letter, so on and so forth. Go to the next slide. So enforcing 100% digital submittals this year really allowed us to review projects faster, not only by allowing us to have concurrent review across all agencies, but also allowing the applicant to respond to comments as soon as the application, or as soon as you got the comments back from our departments. Most people will start making the edits to their plans and documentation as soon as you receive one or two comments from the departments. Others wait for all of them to come in before updating their plans. So it allows us to save time in the process overall. Next slide. This is a broad overview of the workflow of the process, where it comes in on the left-hand side, goes through a decision tree of whether it's a resubmission of an existing project, maybe a site permit, the addenda coming in now. If it's a new submission, then it goes through this completeness check of all pertinent departments. And I want to ensure that it doesn't go to just every department. It just goes to the ones that are typically review that project based on our G20 information sheet. Once it's deemed complete, and like I said, you could go through a cycle or so of completeness checks. It goes in for plan review, and eventually, after some iteration, it gets issued. Next slide. Now we're getting to some of the statistics of the metrics that we put in place since July of 2022, actually since November of 2021. For in-house review projects, the high completion rate you see here shows that we are being more effective with the website directions that we're providing upfront before an application is even submitted. With more information that's out there, we're having a higher pass rate. Nearly 100% of the completeness checks are meeting their target of being completed within 15 days. And as I told you, a mean completion rate is around 6 to 8 days right now. DBI continues to meet our goal of providing first comments back to applicants within 10 business days of assignment. Next slide. Okay, so this is by calendar month, and as you can see, when we started back in January of 2023, the black line here shows our amount of time to assignment, and as you can see, it started out at around well, just looking at the trend here, you can see that it started high and ended up fairly low in and around September. The bump you see around October, November, December had to do with staffing challenges. Not only the holidays, but we had one or two people leave around that time. So that hump around the end of the year 2023 had to do with staffing challenges. But overall, you can see the general trend downwards. Internally as well, we have shot clocks for various, as I mentioned earlier on, we quantify projects by assigning the estimated time to review. And internally, we review our smaller projects quicker, whereas trying to maintain this tiered system internally. Our tier 2 projects have an expectation of being done in DBI in around 20 business days. Tier 3 projects which are between 4 and 8 hours get checked within 30 business days, and tier 4 projects, which are anything that's expected to be over 8 hours of review, takes about 40 business days. And as you can see, we're meeting those targets. We're not meeting them. We're significantly better than we used to be. Our target is 85% meeting those targets. We're at 65% right now. Next slide. This slide has to do with our housing, our review of our review of ADUs and 100% affordable housing projects. Most of these are getting assigned within 5 days of arrival. In fact, I would say 100% of these right now are getting assigned within 100% within 5 days of arrival, and then getting reviewed in that week after. So that's pretty significant. January performance with 90% of these projects were meeting our target, and I would say today internally we have probably 100% meeting our target of being assigned within the expected amount of time. Next slide. City housing permit issuance times have dropped by more than a third, and we're on our way to meeting out the 50% reduction in processing time that was set by Mayor Breed in early 2023. As you can see, we're at a 35% reduction right now. The general trend is downwards, and it looks like we're going to meet that goal. With the new in-house review process requiring planning approval prior to submitting an application, and also mandating plan review, electronic plan review, and enabling concurrent review, we expect this number to drop significantly. And you know, by January of by this time next year, we should not only meet that 50% reduction, and all this time that was associated with the building permit review by the planning department, which was about 50% of the time, that's all gone now. So we will definitely you know, improve our issuance times for building permits. Next slide. This is the last one. And here we see the impact of those first reviews on our overall housing permit issuance times. We have dropped by nearly 50% since we began this these in-house review improvements. Our plan is working, and it's only going to get better, and we will continue to refine our process to ensure that we keep these reductions in processing time. So with that, Patrick, I'll stop and take any questions if this is the time for those.
Terrific. Thanks, Neville. Kelly, do we have any callers with general questions or comments or suggestions for future topics?
Yes, if you have a question, again, you can click the raise button at the top to raise your hand, or if you're calling in, dial *5. And when I call your name, click the unmute button, or if you're calling in, dial *6. I see we've got some raised hands here. Jeff, what is your question?
Jeff, you may need to unmute yourself.
Okay, Jeff, we'll come back to you. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you for now, or mute you for now. David Penn, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Couple of questions. Thank you for the presentation and all the hard work. I know it's hard to change processes, and really great to see your dedication and your team's dedication to making it better. On the cancellation withdrawals, this may be more of a question for Gustavo, but I just wanted to make sure, I may have missed this and I apologize if I did, but can we request withdrawals at the permit center counter, or do we need to email to request that appointment?
Yeah,
So you
if you wanted
okay,
to address
sorry.
it now, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's you do need an appointment to with Jimmy for OTC review, and that can be done there and then. I think Jimmy would appreciate a little bit of advance notice, so if you could email him ahead of time.
Okay, 10-4. And then one thing is that we, and that graph you showed about timeline to first review, the experience I'm having is, and this may be, the experience I'm having is that it's closer to 6-7 weeks to first review, and that may be because the application dates were back in, earlier in the year. I'm not sure if your date there along the x-axis was, submission date, or if that was actual, live calendar time. But it looked like time to first review was looking like it was just a couple 3 weeks, or perhaps that's to assignment rather. I'm sorry. Is that right?
Yeah, so we do have a a delay to assignment. It does stay in our hold bin, waiting to assign. Like I said,
Right.
we assign by the week, as opposed to just assigning for as soon as you come in. So we do currently have a wait period for first review at DBI, which is around 5 weeks right now.
Okay. All right. Got it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something and that there wasn't something amiss with the
Yeah.
various applications I have.
So,
in
and
process.
David, I just want to clarify there. So you would be still waiting for those 5 weeks or so
Yeah.
by the old system. It's just that you didn't know necessarily if you were assigned right away. You would be assigned to a plan checker right away. But there is all sorts of inherent issues with that. Like I said earlier on, either your plan checker could go on vacation and you'd still be assigned to that plan checker. Here,
Yeah,
we just,
no, I get it. I totally
Okay.
get it. Yeah. No, I think it's a good switch that you guys made. No, I appreciate that. It was the timeline. I just wanted to make sure I understood it. So I appreciate that. Really, I just have a comment more to the fire department and DPW, which is really appreciate your department's prioritization of back checks. Find that is just a much more effective and efficient way of getting permits complete. It's fresh in everybody's mind. People don't have to spend the brain energy to remember what the project's about, what the details are, what the nuances are, when they can be prioritized and back checked sooner. And it would be great. I'm not sure if the fire department has such a policy, but it would be great if the Department of Public Works could adopt such a policy as well, and that all city agencies could kind of get on board with that. I think that as a general kind of permit process strategy is very effective, and one that I would hope would be widely adopted and completely adopted by all plan check stations in the city. So that was just kind of a comment I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment, David. There is a concerted effort, as I said, that was started in November of last year for all departments to get together and create this one city approach, right, to permitting. It's not just one department in isolation it's a whole customer experience across from end to end, from beginning intake all the way to issuance. So you will see that. The Permit Center is championing a lot of that, and there is a lot more collaboration today than ever, since I started at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Neville.
Thanks, David. Kelly, do you want to go to our next caller?
Yep. Thank you, David, for your question. Next, we have Jillian Allen. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good afternoon, and I want to echo David's comments and thank you so much for all the hard work that all of you guys have been doing to improve the processes. And I apologize, I'm losing my voice a little bit today. I was wondering, I've had a couple of structural projects with design professionals who are asking if the tier review process is still in place. And my understanding from the last advisory meeting that I attended was that it is not, that it's more of like an in-house process that you're using to assign projects. And so their follow-up question to that is, when they have a project that's more than an hour for OTC for structural purposes, but probably only a couple of hours of review time, does that internally somehow get assigned faster than, or does it just get lumped into all of the other in-house review assignments?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Gillian. It does get reviewed faster based on the fact it would, be a lower tier, maybe a tier 2 or something. Understand this right now. There are challenges that we're currently experiencing with plan check resources and just managing our overall volume. Even though the economy is down, our volume is still the same. Actually, it's slightly up compared to what it was last year. But to answer your question directly, yes, it is assigned a lower tier, tier 2, and the idea is to get it checked quicker. The thing is, it's a balancing act, right? You gotta address these ones at a lower tier, but you keep these other the tier 4s going as well. And every once in a while, you get a slug of a tier 4 that just consumes resources.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pardon our dust. I mean, we're still working on it, but the general answer is yes, we are prioritizing based on the size of projects.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. I think there was a little bit of people wondering if housing, projects were going to take priority and just kind of, upend that tier process, because it was working pretty nicely. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that you guys are still trying to implement that internally. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have any other people that would like to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you, Jillian. Do we have any more hands? Again, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or dial *5.
David, do you have a new question, or is it the same question, or did you just not put your hand down?
Oh, I guess I didn't lower my hand. Apologies.
Okay, last call for questions. Does anybody else have a question or a comment before we conclude? All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. Our next DBI Public Advisory Forum will be Wednesday, July 24th, and we hope you'll join us then. Thanks a lot, folks.